Obviously, the Nuggets just trashed the Lakers. Sorry, Rob G. Rob G thought he was going to hang banner number 18. Not. Here's the question I want to throw at you, Brian. Is Nikola Jokic, I don't want to get in the MVP debate because the MVP isn't about the best player in the league, right? The best player in the league doesn't always win the MVP. I don't think it should go to just who's the best player in the league. Let's give it to him every year. But with Giannis Antetokounmpo, who I have viewed, and many or probably most have viewed as the best player in the world for the past few years since he won that championship in 2021, he goes out meekly in the first round to the Miami Heat. Do you think now that Nikola Jokic is not just en route to his first NBA Finals, is not just the owner of 2 MVP awards, was not just named the Western Conference Finals MVP, the Magic Johnson Award, but is actually now the best player, the best basketball player in the NBA?
I do, Chris. It's his time right now. He was the back-to-back MVP. I know you don't want to reopen that whole discussion. I just disliked the thought of some, and Damian Lillard, who I love, he put it out there, and it's just a terrible take where he's like, you can't have Jokic win the MVP for a third straight season. And it's like, if he's the most deserving, yeah, the hell you can. You know what I mean? Like, if Shohei Ohtani deserves to be AL, or if he's traded to the NL, MVP 9 straight seasons in a row, it's a disservice not to vote him in as the MVP. If you thought Embiid had a better season, great, and you can make that argument. You can make an argument Giannis had a better season. Fine, but don't sell me on we just can't give Jokic the MVP for a third straight season.
Well,
it's not orange slices
here
for
was
everybody.
The logic, though. You think Michael Jordan should have won 3 in a row?
Absolutely.
LeBron James?
Absolutely.
Even Giannis could have very easily won 3 in a row. We have judged, like, there's a precedent for not giving guys the MVP award for 3 years in a row. And I'm not saying it can never happen again. But my point, because I'm a voter and I voted for Embiid, and I do think Jokic, Embiid, and Giannis all had incredible seasons. And you can justify voting for either one because it's a regular season award. Remember, not a postseason award. But my thinking was, I looked it all up because I spent hours on my ballot, not just MVP, but my whole ballot. Michael Jordan's numbers and season was better the year after he won his 2 straight MVPs than, it was better that third year when he didn't win it. And LeBron, of course, there's an argument for him, and I mentioned Giannis, but that's a precedent. So my thinking was not that someone can't be given the award 3 straight years.
Okay.
Only Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell, and Larry Bird have done that. But my thinking was, if we're going to give it to a guy 3 straight years, he has to be head and shoulders above the 2, 3, 4, whatever guys are competing with him for that award. And I thought it was close. I could make a compelling argument, which I did for Embiid. The numbers are very close. Embiid got to the foul line far more, is a better defender, was better in the clutch. Like all those numbers, offensively and defensively. So I felt good, period, about my vote. But that was my thinking, is that, look, if they didn't give it to Jordan or LeBron or Giannis when they were very deserving of 3 straight, then he has to be so far ahead of the rest for me to give it to him a 3rd straight time.
I'll put it to you this way. You know what this makes me think of is when Steph Curry was the first unanimous MVP. And there were a lot of people that said, how can he be the first guy? Jordan didn't do it. LeBron didn't do it. Steph Curry is the first guy, and it's like he averaged 30 on a 73-win team.
Right.
He's easily the MVP. If you voted somebody else out of this thought of, well, we haven't had a unanimous guy before.
Yeah,
that's
but
just
that
faulty
you don't
thinking.
know that. That's the difference. Like, you don't know who else is voting for, going to vote for or against that. So I don't think anybody said, you know what, Jordan wasn't unanimous. Let me go ahead. And obviously nobody said it, but I don't even think anybody thought it. Let me be the one not to vote for Steph. That's
they'll do that.
Baseball
I hear you.
does that in the Hall of
Baseball
Fame.
absolutely does that, where we're like, we can't have
How was Babe Ruth
unanimous
not
guy.
unanimous? Like, right?
Like,
it's ridiculous.
If you don't think Mo Rivera should have been a first ballot unanimous Hall of Famer, I don't know what you're watching. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
That's the thing that's where I come back to. Sometimes history gets in your way, where this idea, and I hear you about 3 straight MVPs. It's a short list, but just because the voting has been wrong at times in the past, it doesn't make it right to continue getting it wrong. You know what I mean?
I hear you on that. That's fair, but these guys are judged against one another. And we have outliers. Look, I have been able to say, look, people that saw these guys play will be able to stay. For instance, Steve Nash has as many MVP awards as Shaq and Kobe combined. Mm-hmm. Isaiah Thomas, the legendary guard for Detroit, never won an MVP. All right. Nash had, so people of this era would be able to say, you know what, even though Nash won back-to-back MVPs, he's not better than Isaiah Thomas was. Mm-hmm. He's not better than Kobe. He's not better than Shaq. But 40 years from now, when people haven't seen all these guys play, and they're just going by the numbers as they do rankings, they may look at that and say, oh, wow, Kobe only won 1 MVP. How good could he really have been? Steve Nash won 2.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So these things really matter. I feel you, but I do think precedent is important. And I agree. Sometimes it's been wrong. Sometimes they just gave it to Karl Malone. Not that he wasn't deserving ever of an MVP, but Jordan was better.
And that's what drives me crazy. That's what's crazy is I look at it more in a vacuum. And I think it's interesting because you can look at it different ways. You look at it more the season that was, and then also from a historic point of view.
That's one of my criteria. They don't give you a criteria, but one of mine is historical precedent or significance. It's not the only one. It's not the main one. I've got about 4 or 5 criteria, but that is one of them.
I look at it differently, and that's what's interesting about it, and some would argue somewhat maddening, is we might look at something. It's like a painting, if you will. You know, we might look at the Mona Lisa very differently and point out different things.
Unless you're really not feeling it.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
it's all right.
It's okay. I don't know what it's. People put that on a pedestal, but whatever.
Right.
But I look at a season in the NBA more in a vacuum. I don't look at, hey, what's it connected to? It's connected to the last 2 seasons for Jokic being the MVP, or it's connected to Larry Bird and Wilt. I don't look at it like that. I look at the 2022-23 season, and I just break it down like that because I do think sometimes history can get in your way. And I look at who was the most valuable to his team, who was the most valuable in his league, who had the best season. And I just let the chips fall where they may because I don't think Jokic, being a 2-time MVP, he's got to go above and beyond the competition. I look at it like, you know, you don't have to be Secretariat winning the Triple Crown over there by like 30 lengths or whatever it was. You just got to win by a nose. And if Jokic wins by a nose and he happens to be the 3-time MVP, so be it. But he didn't win it. And I don't want to distract from the true discussion here, which is
we're gonna get into that next. Is Jokic now the best player in the NBA? And if so, why? Or if not, why? That's next. All right, we were just talking about whether or not Nikola Jokic deserved the MVP. Mm-hmm. Certainly if he were, if they were to do it all over again and include the playoffs, then he would get it. But some people have said that they should give it after the playoffs. But you know what? I completely disagree with that. Couldn't disagree more because all it would become is the finals MVP.
Totally.
You're right? Yeah. So what they should do is that they got a few days off. I don't know if it's as much as a week. Well, they're doing the play-in. During that time, Brian, this is my idea, and I've said it for a few years now. In that break between the end of the regular season and the start of the official playoffs, not the play-in, but the playoff games, they should announce all of the award winners.
Yeah.
You can have a nice special on TNT with Ernie and Chuck and Shaq and Kenny and have each award winner on the show via, satellite or something like that. So I think that would be great. And that would remove all of the confusion because a lot of people do, that they announce the MVP during the playoffs. And a lot of times people are like, oh, the MVP has been eliminated. Yeah. Or the MVP's not playing well. And this guy should have got, you know what I mean? So
I always think of the year where Dirk Nowitzki got presented the MVP in like a closet somewhere because they got bounced by the Warriors.
That was the saddest MVP award ceremony ever.
But I like your idea. If you're going to do an awards show, it's got to be before the playoffs, not after the playoffs. Right. At least they figured that out. That was just a really bad way to do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, so this was the question I wanted to get to last segment. Is Nikola Jokic the best player in the world? And I think he is, honestly. And a lot of people, the reason they would say he's not is because he's not a great defensive player. That is a weakness, but he is a smart defensive player, and he is big, obviously. And just his size alone and his smarts make him, he's not a negative defensively.
Right.
He's not, great, and he's not going to wreak havoc on that end of the court, but he isn't a negative, and I think his size and smarts actually make him somewhat of a positive at least. Magic and Bird, those guys weren't tremendous individual defenders, but they were smart, they had great instincts, and it wasn't a liability. And the bottom line is this. I think it's between Jokic and Giannis and every other player in the league right now has weaknesses. Giannis can't shoot.
No.
I'm not even just talking about free throws. I'm talking about jumpers. And if you can keep him from getting to the basket every time down, essentially, like Miami has done a few times in the playoffs, then you can beat them. Mm-hmm. We saw him. They couldn't even go to him at the end of a game in the fourth quarter because he doesn't have the jumper. And so everybody's got a weakness, but Jokic is so good offensively, passing, scoring in the post, scoring in the mid-range, scoring with the three, leads the fast break. He can do it all offensively. They run the offense through him, but he's not ball dominant, which is a huge plus. And so I do think right now he can wear that crown as the best player in the world.
Yeah, and I think this whole discussion, it's important to keep in mind, these are like college football rankings. You know what I mean? Where you play a week of college football and things are going to change. Right. I think Jokic is the top guy right now. That could change very quickly. It could change next season. But right now, this is his time for the reasons that you pointed out. His passing ability is on another level. For a big man, it's insane what he does out there. He's the best passing big man of all time in my
I was going to say, I think he is. Some people want to say Bill Walton, Wilt Chamberlain led the league in assists one year. No, Jokic is the best passing big man ever.
He's unbelievable. And the scoring ability, you look at compared to Giannis, Jokic is not the physical freak and agile assassin in a fast break the way Giannis is,
right.
But Jokic's outside shooting is worlds better than Giannis's is. Now, defensively, as you pointed out, Giannis is way, way better than Jokic is. But Jokic isn't just getting worked defensively. And I think when you compare him to Embiid, Embiid's a better defender. There's no doubt about that. But Embiid, sometimes it's the conditioning. Sometimes it's the games that he misses. And I would also throw in there throwing his best at the most crucial moments. And he certainly came up short in Game 7 against the Celtics. So,
no doubt.
It's not by leaps and bounds, but yeah, right now, Jokic is the top dog.
Yeah, and I used to have Embiid ahead of Jokic, largely because of the defense, as you said. Ate him up one-on-one when they played this year, put 47 on Jokic. But I am with you. Like, Jokic, and here's what I'd say about, you mentioned it, like college rankings. It is right now, and obviously it won't change weekly, but there is no Michael Jordan was far and away the best player in the world for years. LeBron James, far and away the best player in the world for years. We're not there yet. Now, we may get there. Maybe it'll be Jokic. Maybe it'll be Giannis. Maybe it'll be somebody else. But right now, it is kind of open.
Yeah.
It's up for debate. It's up for grabs. And some people still will say Giannis. Some people will say Jokic. I don't know that many will say Embiid. Well, here's what I say to Embiid and Giannis. Because Giannis, I know he works hard. He can improve his jumper to some degree. He may never be a great jump shooter. But what Giannis and Embiid can both learn from Jokic is watch him go to work down low. And I don't mean post up on the block for 40 minutes a night like Shaq or Olajuwon or Ewing or David Robinson, any of those guys used to do. Those days are over. But Jokic, who brings the ball up court, leads the break, gets it at the top of the key or the foul line or the elbow, when the time calls for it, when the situation calls for it, when it's a defender he wants to exploit, he will back them down all the way to the hoop and put up jump hooks, little baby jump hooks over them. That's what I want to see from Embiid and Giannis.
Mm-hmm.
If Embiid, who's got a great mid-range shot, if it's not falling, then have a back down game. Giannis, if they put a wall up and you can't get to the rim, have a back down game. Let us be able to post you up. Coaches, put a package in for your team where you play off Embiid on the block. You play off Giannis on the block, even though they can do other things. Denver does that. It doesn't have to be him scoring all the time, but if they'll throw it to Jokic down low and he'll pass it out of there.
Yeah.
They got cutters and stuff or three-point shooters he's passing it to. So those are things, honestly, that the other two great bigs in the league could learn from Jokic.
You know what stands out to me too, Chris, is just stylistically, Jokic's game, it's not going to ooh and ah you the way other games do. I look at it like fireworks. You ever go see fireworks, maybe for the 4th of July or whatever? There are some fireworks where you go, ooh, and ah, and all. Jokic, his game stylistically, he's really like those firework duds that go in the air and they just go, boom, and you don't go ooh and ah, right? Like, if he had that part of it, oh my gosh, it would be a wrap. It wouldn't even be a question who the best player is right now. But because he doesn't have that, I think that he's penalized sometimes, and that's why people are reluctant to commit to him being the best player. Think of a guy like KG, just stylistically, where he's going up and swatting a ball away, even though it's a dead ball, or headbutting a stanchion. He was just a character. He was a great player, but he had style.
Yep.
And if Jokic had something like that, he's more Tim Duncan. He's more the big fundamental than he is KG or someone stylistically like that.
Absolutely. It's going to have to take, as great as he is, and his numbers are ridiculous. I mean, you can't deny his numbers. But it's going to take the championships for people to really appreciate how great he is. I mean, people are starting to appreciate it, but why? Because he's on the verge of possibly winning his first championship. If Duncan doesn't have 5 rings, we don't think of him the same way, which obviously we get it. We really are into championships. But to your point, people weren't going to just watch him play and, oh, wow, he's so great. I mean, basketball purists would, but the great general basketball public wants to see that dull game, if you will, lead to championships.